My family mocked me as I entered the wedding alone. "She's still single," my sister sneered, but then the doors slammed open and a tech billionaire took my hand, saying, "Sorry I'm late, darling." And what happened next left everyone speechless. Chapter 1: The Crimson Gambit. Rain lashed against the cab window as I gripped my phone, its screen glowing with a message that turned my blood to ice. "Leave now or lose everything." The words pulsed in my mind, each syllable a hammer strike. I was Claire Bennett, 34, cybersecurity architect at Nexus Tech, and I'd faced down multi-million-dollar hacks without flinching. But this was personal. The Waldorf Astoria loomed ahead, its golden facade shimmering through the storm, a beacon of opulence where my cousin Emily's wedding waited, and with it the judgmental gauntlet of my family. I should have turned the cab around, fled back to my Manhattan loft, and barricaded myself with code and coffee. Instead, I paid the driver, stepped into the downpour, and let my crimson gown cling to me like a second skin, a defiant shield against whatever threat lurked in that text. The cab pulled away and I stood frozen on the sidewalk, rain soaking my hair, my clutch slippery in my hand. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't dare look. Not yet. The Waldorf storeman, a gray-haired man with a kind smile, rushed forward with an umbrella. "Miss, you'll catch your death out here," he said, ushering me toward the revolving doors. I forced a smile, my heels clicking on the marble lobby floor as warmth enveloped me, but the chill in my chest didn't fade. Who sent that text? What did they know? My work at Nexus Tech was classified. Project Solace, an AI defense system, was locked behind layers of encryption even I could barely crack. If someone had breached it, my career, my life, everything I'd clawed my way to build after Ethan's betrayal could collapse. I adjusted my gown, the deep red fabric catching the lobby's chandelier light, and caught my reflection in a gilded mirror. Hazel eyes, sharp cheekbones, dark hair swept into an elegant updo. On the outside, I looked like I belonged. Inside, I was a mess of nerves, bracing for the family reunion I'd dreaded for months. Emily's wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a stage where my solo act would be scrutinized by my parents, Margaret and Thomas Bennett, and my sister, Lauren, the golden child who'd always outshone me. Growing up in suburban Seattle, I'd been the shadow to Lauren's son. Her ballet recitals packed the house while my MIT scholarship earned a pat on the head. Tonight, I'd walk into that ballroom alone, no +1 to deflect their pity, and now this anonymous threat hung over me like a guillotine. "Miss Bennett?" A voice snapped me out of my spiral. A man in a black suit, his face forgettable but his eyes too sharp, stood too close. Before I could respond, he brushed past me, his hand grazing my purse. "Don't trust anyone tonight," he whispered, then vanished into the crowd of guests funneling toward the ballroom. My heart lurched. I opened my clutch, and there it was, a sleek USB drive, black and unassuming, nestled beside my lipstick. My fingers trembled as I tucked it deeper into the purse. Whatever was on that drive, it wasn't a wedding gift. It was trouble. The ballroom doors swung open, and I stepped into a world of excess. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across cream and orchid centerpieces, their petals glowing under candlelight. A string quartet played Vivaldi, and laughter mingled with the clink of champagne flutes. But the air shifted as I entered, a ripple of whispers spreading like wildfire. Heads turned, my family's heads, their eyes slicing through me. Lauren, radiant in a pale gold dress, leaned toward her fiancé, James, and muttered, "She couldn't even find a date. Pathetic." Her voice carried, deliberate and cutting, and I felt every syllable like a slap. My mother, Margaret, elegant in sapphire silk, offered that familiar, pitying smile, the one she'd perfected when I didn't make cheerleading in 9th grade. My father, Thomas, barely glanced up from his whiskey, his disinterest louder than words. I squared my shoulders, the crimson gown my armor, and forced my legs to move, but the whispers didn't stop. Aunt Helen, her voice booming over the quartet, swooped in with a glass of Chardonnay. "Claire, darling, alone again? I've got just the man for you. My nephew Reggie, fresh out of parole, but he's got a good heart." Laughter erupted around her, and my cheeks burned. I mumbled something about needing a drink and beelined for a corner near the dessert table, my sanctuary of macarons and solitude. But the USB in my purse felt heavier now, a ticking bomb. I pulled out my phone, the threatening text still glaring. Lose everything. Was it about Project Solace? My ex Ethan had stolen my early AI prototype 2 years ago, selling it to a rival firm and leaving me to pick up the pieces of my trust. Could he be behind this? Or was it someone at Nexus Tech, someone who knew I'd been sniffing around the company's recent security breaches? I was spiraling when the cab ride flashed back, the jolt of impact, the screech of tires. En route here, an unmarked SUV had slammed into my cab's rear bumper, the driver speeding off into the rain before I could catch the plate. At the time, I'd chalked it up to New York's chaos, but now it felt deliberate. A warning. My pulse raced. I scanned the room, searching for the man in the black suit, but he was gone. Instead, I caught Lauren's smirk from across the floor, her diamond earrings glinting as she whispered to James. My mother approached, her perfume cloying. "Claire, honey, you look bold," she said, her eyes lingering on my gown with disapproval. "It's fine to be independent, you know. Not everyone needs a partner." Her tone screamed the opposite, and I swallowed the urge to snap back. Before I could, the wedding planner, a frazzled woman with a clipboard, whisked me away. "Miss Bennett, your table's this way." She led me to the singles table, a purgatory of mismatched guests. Marge, an elderly widow with a whistling hearing aid, a teenage cousin glued to his Nintendo Switch, and a divorced cousin, Greg, reeking of bourbon. Marge leaned in, her voice like a foghorn. "No husband yet, Claire. Too busy with those computers." I forced a smile, reaching for my water glass and nearly toppling my champagne flute. "I love my work," I said, my voice tighter than I meant. Greg slurred. "Bet that's why you're still single. Men don't like women smarter than them." I bit my tongue, focusing on the ceremony to come, but my mind was on the USB. I needed a computer, somewhere private to check its contents, but leaving now would draw more attention, and with Lauren's eyes boring into me, I couldn't afford to look weak. Emily's ceremony began, and the room hushed. She floated down the aisle in a lace gown, radiant as she joined her groom Daniel at the altar. Their vows were raw, promising partnership through storms, and I felt a pang, happiness for her, but also a hollow ache. I'd sworn off love after Ethan, his betrayal a wound that hadn't healed. He'd been my partner, my collaborator, until I found emails proving he'd sold my AI prototype to a "I didn't mean to hurt you," he'd said, as if intent softened the knife. I'd rebuilt my life, brick by brick, but nights like this, watching love celebrated, made me question if I'd ever trust again. Cocktail hour was worse. I stationed myself near the shrimp display, a plate of canapes my shield, but my family descended like vultures. Uncle Frank, his tie loosened, clapped my shoulder. "Claire, you gotta meet my son Tyler. He's big in crypto, only slightly bankrupt now." I dodged his pitch, but others piled on. Cousin Linda asked, "When's your turn, Claire? Your clock's ticking." My mother's friend Patricia chimed in, "My accountant's single, 50 but stable." By the 6th unsolicited setup, I fled to the restroom, locking myself in a stall. My breath came in gasps, the USB a weight in my purse. I splashed water on my face at the marble sink, staring into the mirror. "Get it together," I whispered. "Their opinions don't define you." I called Sophia, my lifeline from the powder room's cushioned bench. They're acting like I'm a spinster with a terminal case of ambition, I vented. Sophia's voice was steady. Claire, their baggage isn't yours. You stopped a cyber attack that saved Nexus Tech millions. You're a badass. I laughed, the sound shaky but real. Badass or not, I'm drowning here. Then swim, she said. Show them who you are. Her words steeled me, and I returned to the reception, head high. But Lauren intercepted me, a champagne flute in hand. You should try dating apps, Claire. Even people like you find matches these days. Her faux sympathy stung, and I forced a smile. I'm good, Lauren. My career's enough for now. She patted my arm. That's what single women say when they're desperate. The DJ's voice boomed. All the single ladies, it's bouquet toss time. I groaned as Aunt Helen and two cousins physically steered me toward the dance floor. Go on, Claire. Maybe it'll change your luck. Helen pushed me into the gaggle of giggling women, Emily poised to toss her bouquet. I stood rigid, every eye on me when the lights flickered. A brief blackout, then back on. My phone buzzed and I stole a glance. Hand over the drive, or Emily pays. My stomach dropped. I scanned the room, but no one stood out. The crowd cheered as Emily tossed the bouquet, and I ducked, letting it sail over me. The threat was real, and I needed to act. Then the grand doors burst open, silencing the quartet mid-note. A man strode in, tall and commanding, his navy suit tailored to perfection, dark hair, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes, storm gray, sharp, locking onto mine across the room. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Is that Julian Carter? Someone whispered. The tech billionaire? Another hissed. Julian Carter, CEO of Carter Labs, a name synonymous with innovation and power. He crossed the ballroom with purposeful strides, the sea of guests parting. My heart hammered as he stopped in front of me, his presence overwhelming. Sorry I'm late, darling, he said, his voice deep and smooth, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Traffic was hell. Before I could process, he leaned in, his lips brushing my cheek, cedar cologne wrapping around me. Play along, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. You're in danger. I froze, my mind racing. How did he know my name? Why was he here? But his eyes held a steadiness that anchored me, and I heard myself say, I thought you'd miss it. The words came out steady, surprising even me. Lauren's jaw dropped, her champagne flute tilting. My mother straightened, her pity replaced by shock. Julian's hand found mine, warm and firm, and he led me away from the bouquet chaos, the crowd buzzing in our wake. Who are you? I hissed under my breath. His lips curved, a flicker of amusement. Someone who doesn't like seeing you cornered. We'll talk later. For now, smile. I did, my mind a whirlwind, but his touch grounded me. Whoever Julian Carter was, he'd just turned my night, and maybe my life, upside down. The rain was relentless, drumming against the cab's roof like a warning. I sat in the back, my crimson gown folded carefully to avoid wrinkles, but my hands betrayed me, trembling as I stared at my phone. Leave now, or lose everything. The words glowed in the dim light, each one a shard of glass in my gut. I'm Claire Bennett, I told myself, the woman who'd outsmarted a cyber attack that could have bankrupted Nexus Tech. I'd faced boardrooms full of suits who doubted me, coded through nights when sleep was a memory, and rebuilt my life after Ethan tore it apart. But this text? It wasn't a firewall I could patch or a virus I could isolate. It was personal, and it terrified me. Almost there, miss, the cabbie said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. I nodded, tucking my phone into my clutch. The Waldorf Astoria's lights pierced the storm, a golden promise of glamour I wasn't ready to face. My cousin Emily's wedding was tonight, and I'd spent weeks dreading it. Not the vows or the cake, but the family reunion that came with it. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, would be there, their disappointment in my single status as palpable as ever. My sister, Lauren, would glide in with her hedge fund fiancé, James, her perfection a mirror to my flaws. Growing up in Seattle, I'd been the runner-up in the Bennett family pageant. Lauren's ballet solos drew standing ovations while my MIT acceptance letter got a distracted, nice work over meatloaf. Tonight, I'd walk into that ballroom alone, no buffer against their pity, and now this text had me questioning if I should walk in at all. The cab lurched, a sudden jolt throwing me against the seatbelt. "What the cabbie cursed as headlights flared behind us. A black SUV slammed into our bumper, the impact rattling my teeth. "Crazy bastard!" he yelled. But the SUV peeled away, vanishing into the rain-slicked streets before I could glimpse the driver. My heart pounded. "You okay, miss?" the cabbie asked, pulling over. I nodded, but my mind raced. An accident? Or something more? I'd been digging into Nexus Tech's recent security breaches, unexplained data leaks that pointed to an inside job. Had I gotten too close? I paid the fare, my hands shaking, and stepped into the storm, the Waldorf's grandeur a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. The doorman rushed out with an umbrella, his smile warm but fleeting. "Rough night to be out, miss." I forced a laugh, my heels slipping slightly on the wet marble as I entered the lobby. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, their light bouncing off gold accents and polished floors. I caught my reflection in a mirror, crimson gown hugging my frame, dark hair swept up, hazel eyes sharp but haunted. I looked like I belonged, but I felt like an imposter, the threatening text looping in my mind. I adjusted my clutch, ready to head for the ballroom, when a man in a black suit brushed past me. His face was bland, forgettable, but his eyes were too focused, too knowing. "Don't trust anyone tonight," he whispered, his hand grazing my purse. Before I could react, he melted into the crowd, leaving my clutch hammering. I opened my clutch, and there it was, a USB drive, sleek and black, nestled beside my keys. My breath caught. Whatever was on it, it wasn't random. It was a trap, a key, or both. I clutched my purse tighter and entered the ballroom, the opulence hitting me like a wave. Chandeliers dripped light onto orchid centerpieces, their petals glowing in candlelight. A string quartet played, and guests in designer gowns and tuxes mingled, their laughter sharp against the hum of Vivaldi. But the air shifted as I stepped in, a ripple of whispers spreading. I felt their eyes, my family's eyes. Before I saw them, Lauren, radiant in gold, leaned toward James and muttered, "She couldn't even find a date. Pathetic." Her voice was a blade, meant to cut, and it did. My mother, in sapphire silk, offered that pitying smile, the one that said, "You tried, dear." My father, nursing a whiskey, didn't bother looking up. I squared my shoulders, the crimson gown my defiance, but their judgment was a weight I couldn't shake. Aunt Helen swooped in, her Chardonnay sloshing. "Claire, alone again? Don't worry, I've got a match for you, my nephew Reggie. Just out of parole, but he's turning things around." Her laugh boomed, drawing more eyes, and my cheeks burned. I mumbled an excuse and fled to a corner near the dessert table, macarons and solitude my only allies. But the USB in my purse was a live wire, its presence screaming for attention. I pulled out my phone, the text still there, "Lose everything." My work on Project Solace was classified, an AI defense system that could revolutionize national security, or destroy it in the wrong hands. Ethan had stolen my early prototype 2 years ago, selling it to a rival and leaving me to rebuild my trust. Was he behind this? Or was it someone at Nexus Tech, someone who knew I'd been tracing those leaks? I was spiraling when the cab crash replayed in my mind, the SUV's headlights, the screech of tires. It hadn't felt random, not now, not with the USB and the text. My pulse raced. I scanned the room for the man in the black suit, but he was gone. Lauren's smirk caught my eye instead, her diamonds glinting as she whispered to James. My mother approached, her perfume overwhelming. "Claire, that dress is bold," she said, her eyes disapproving. "It's fine to be independent. Not everyone needs a partner." Her tone implied I'd failed at both. I swallowed a retort as the wedding planner, clipboard in hand, saved me. "Miss Bennett, your table's this way." She led me to the singles table, a motley crew of outcasts. Marge, a widow with a screeching hearing aid, a teenage cousin lost in his switch, and Greg, a divorced cousin reeking of bourbon. Marge leaned in, her voice deafening. "No husband yet, Claire. Too busy with those computers." I forced a smile, my hand grazing my champagne flute. "I love my work," I said, but Greg snorted. "That's why you're single. Men don't want smarter women." I bit my tongue, my mind on the USB. I needed a computer, a secure connection, but slipping away now would raise flags, especially with Lauren watching like a hawk. Emily's ceremony began and the room fell silent. She glided down the aisle, her lace gown shimmering, and joined Daniel at the altar. Their vows were raw, promising love through chaos, and I felt a tug, joy for her, but also a void in me. Ethan's betrayal had scarred me, his lies unraveling 3 years of my life. I'd found emails proving he'd sold my AI prototype. His excuse, "I didn't mean to hurt you," a hollow echo. I'd sworn off love, built walls of code and ambition, but watching Emily's happiness cracked those walls. Just a little. Cocktail hour was a gauntlet. I parked myself by the shrimp, a plate of canapés my defense, but my family swarmed. Uncle Frank clapped my shoulder. "Claire, meet my son, Tyler. Crypto King, only slightly bankrupt." I dodged, but the onslaught continued. Cousin Linda prodded. "Your clock's ticking, Claire," Patricia offered. "My accountant's single, 50 but stable." I fled to the restroom, locking myself in a stall, my breath ragged. The USB was a weight, the text a threat. I splashed water on my face, staring into the mirror. "You're enough," I whispered, but doubt gnawed at me. I called Sophia from the powder room's bench. "They're treating me like a spinster with a disease," I said. Sophia's voice was fierce. "Claire, you saved Nexus Tech from a hack. You're a rock star." "Their crap isn't yours," I laughed, shaky but grateful. "I'm drowning, Soph." "Then fight," she said. "Show them." Her words lit a spark, and I returned to the reception, chin up. But Lauren was waiting, champagne in hand. "Try Tinder, Claire. Even you might find someone." Her pity was venom, and I smiled tightly. "I'm good, Lauren. Work's my focus." She patted my arm. "That's what desperate women say." The DJ's voice cut through. "Single ladies, bouquet toss time." Aunt Helen and cousins dragged me forward, their hands pushing me into the crowd. "Go, Claire, catch some luck," Helen cackled. I stood exposed as Emily prepared to toss. Then the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat. My phone buzzed, and I stole a glance. Hand over the drive or Emily pays. My blood ran cold. I scanned the room, but no one stood out. Emily tossed the bouquet, and I sidestepped, letting it fly past. The threat was real, and I was out of time. Then the doors slammed open, the quartet faltering. A man strode in, his navy suit sharp, his presence electric. Dark hair, storm gray eyes, a jawline like a blade. The crowd hushed, whispers erupting. "Julian Carter." "The billionaire?" He crossed the room, eyes locked on mine, and stopped inches away. "Sorry I'm late, darling," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Traffic was hell." He leaned in, his lips brushing my cheek, cedar cologne enveloping me. "Play along," he whispered. "You're in danger." My heart stopped. Who was he? How did he know me? But his gaze held a promise, and I heard myself say, "I thought you'd miss it." Lauren's jaw hit the floor. My mother gasped. Julian's hand found mine, and the room spun. Whatever game this was, I was in it now, and there was no turning back.